Welcome to the 44th Ask the Chief Forum. All right. This one, we're going to be covering some various topics, but I want to actually address the subject of box heads. And Jessica will be asking the first question, and then after that, we'll use the wheel. Okay,
What is a box head?
very simple, straight to the point. So what is a box head? What I refer to people who are box heads or individuals who are just basically closed-minded. They get their information from the system and they don't really use any sense of discernment for themselves. They tend to shut down on anything that falls outside of what the system says is or isn't. And these are the kind of individuals, if you were to say that you saw some years ago a UFO, they would just say, you're lying or you're crazy. Those are boxes. They immediately go into that zone. So literally, they're locked down. They're individuals who have low, higher consciousness energy. So the lower the higher consciousness energy, the more robotic and pliable the individual is. So that is the basically a short definition, and there's some other questions that'll come up where I can elaborate having to do with those questions. So we can go to the next question, which is really the first question with the wheel, and we're going to turn the wheel, spinning the wheel now. Vroom.
Number 3.
Number 3.
What causes someone to become a box head?
A person, you're generally born into a system that is designed to turn you into what I call a box head. Literally just shut you down and they want you to just follow the orders. So again, parental units, sibling units, when you get to a certain age where you're interacting with other kids, so-called friend units are individuals that will contribute to you being a box head because they're also being turned into box heads themselves. Depending on how many expressions a person comes, depends on how easy it is for them to be controlled by the system. And literally, individuals who will talk about, scientists said this, therefore, what the scientist says is true, and your experience isn't true. When in reality, you're looking at something, you're experiencing something, and there may be some other individuals there who may be experiencing it. Also, there are situations where you're experiencing something and your mind may be more open, which means that you're on your way to having the possibility of not being a boxhead because you're willing to accept something that's outside of the so-called realm of norm in the matrix or in the system. So they'll say, oh, well, this cryptid doesn't exist or that cryptid doesn't exist and so on. But you'll find, for instance, let me go to an example. There's a First Nations podcast that I came across recently, and it's very refreshing because there's a very different approach to all these things that the very Western system tries to poo-poo or say, well, there's no proof of this, there's no proof of that. When in reality, these groups, and actually the podcast is called Lodge Tales, I believe. And a lot of the stories have to do with people's personal experiences, First Nation people's personal experience. The stories are in the podcast is basically to showcase stories from First Nations people, which I'm totally down with that. I've had enough of listening to Westerners in their mishmash of simple-mindedness and how do we know if that really exists and so on and so forth, when these groups have been experiencing these things for centuries. So, for example, what the West disrespectfully call Bigfoot, these are individuals who are I call the big people. There are certain First nations who refer to them as a hairy man or something like that, even though they're male and female. So you'll listen to these Western-oriented podcasts and say, well, we have to prove that they exist and so on and so forth. But here are people who they're disrespecting their opinion, like their opinion means nothing, their experiences mean nothing, when they've had numerous interactions with these particular individuals, these particular beings. So this, in the sense, the box heads are literally supported by the system, which is very much a Western type system, and it's an imperialistic system. It all came from imperialism, and I may get into some of that stuff later. How imperialism destroys cultures, and they'll talk about colonialism or colonialists or whatever. That's just basically the same thing as an imperialist. They expand their territory, and by expanding their territory, they move into other cultures, spaces, and then they destroy the culture. They kill those who are notable, who hold the line, or who have an understanding of other realms and other worlds. And then they introduce this closed-minded thing that, well, since our scientists can't prove it, therefore it doesn't exist. And there's others who've heard me, my attitude about the scientist nonsense. Now, if you have an experience, whatever it is, if you see an entity at the foot of your bed one night, that is a reality. That's not an illusion or a fantasy, or you're just having basically an illusion. For some reason, they're going to point to you, who they don't even know you, and tell you, this is something I experienced years ago, having to do with having sleep paralysis. Because way back then, nobody was talking about anything about sleep paralysis. I ended up finding out a little bit about it from a psychic, but her information wasn't really all that exact, But as I kept having them, I began to figure out what it was about. Whenever it would happen, I would feel a frequency change in my body before it would happen. So this system that supports the box heads of this particular period are those who belong to the imperialist idea. What's behind the imperialist? Density, the other side. But they'll tell you, no, the other side doesn't exist. But you'll find that their big muckety mucks and their leaders and so on and so forth are having rituals, trying to conjure up, Baphomet and all these other entities and whatever. And these are the same individuals who tell you that, oh, that other side doesn't exist. Years ago, light beings told me that you are in the sea of lies. This is the sea of lies. How consciousness end up here is through lying. You are a full consciousness out in the universe. This is a sick realm created by a sick consciousness who invented the whole idea of lying and fear and hate and all that stuff. And you're there out in the realm where everybody's cool. Everybody's part of the real. You have individual ways of looking at things because that's interesting. That contributes. But no one's lying to you. If another consciousness said, this is going on over here, you want to check it out, you go, and whatever they say is going on over there is going on over there. Now, these clowns that they called the name forgets me now, but it's literally, they come and they lie to any, usually a younger consciousness that's moving through that area and say, hey, we have an experience going on over here. You want to try it out? I said, well, no one lies in this realm. There's not, what lie means because it doesn't exist. Sure, I'll go. Then they find themselves trapped in this nonsense. The nonsense that you are in, I am in at this particular point in time. They fragment your whole consciousness so it make it easier to control your consciousness, so they speak, so they think. So again, this still is in the realm of box heads, but it's moving. This is a very organic thing. So I'm moving along with how things come up in my mind while I'm talking about it. But the biggest problem has to do with the whole concept of imperialism. One group deciding that they're going to dominate all other groups and take, the whole concept of taking things, very dense. You must fear me, very dense. Religion is a big part of that. And most all religions have been involved in imperialistic movements. But apparently, Christianity and the West are the most notorious. And this is from AI. I'm going to do an interview with AI at some point soon, and you get those answers straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So again, individuals, box heads, they exist in there's numerous boxes, but they're boxes. I don't believe in boxes. Therefore, I've never been a box head. Even as a kid, I was always questioning everything, but I came here to do that. And when I start to share information and share proof of what I'm talking about, those individuals who've come as members of my movement have come with their box heads ideas. All of a sudden, the walls of that box starts to shake and holes start to form. So before I continue and end up answering questions that you guys are probably supposed to ask, we can move on to the next question. And we can just spin that wheel now. Spin that wheel.
Number 6.
Number 6.
Number 6. A while ago, there was this picture or lightning above the clouds seen from space, going viral on social media. It was a white, bluish line of light above the lighted up clouds. The end was red and split in many thinner lines. What was that really?
That was part of the light grid that has been replacing, and you might as well say, has replaced the dense grid. That's just work of light beings. There are videos, other videos where they are seeing beams shot down straight into the ground. Sometimes those beams will shoot down, sometimes like a red beam, and more than a few times, and they'll hear like a sound, almost like an explosion type sound. All that is work that's being done in this realm as we speak. So yes, that's work on the light grid. I don't know where else what more to say about that. So we can move on to the next question, and we can spin that wheel. Spin the wheel. Mhm.
Number 5.
Number 5.
Okay, it's number 5. What is Chief's definition of maturity? What does it look like? Does Chief have an example of mature versus immature behavior?
Okay. Well, there's very little maturity in this world. As I've said for quite a long time, dealing with individuals in this world is like dealing with toddlers. Almost like 2-year-old minds. What they decide to do, what they think is the proper thing to do, and it's usually wonky or whack, or whacked out or wacky. Now, maturity, I would say, has to do with someone who has a lot more light, has a lot more energy in their higher consciousness, hasn't been beaten down to the point yet where they can't go against their jockeys. So for someone who has more light energy in their higher consciousness, for most jockeys, they're not really crazy about dealing with individuals, who are like that. But there are those, from what I understand, from what they tell me, they're more like specialists who come in, like, like they're, um, breaking a horse, you know. So breaking up, bucking bronco. The higher consciousness being stronger is like, a wild horse that they're trying to tame and they're trying to send in a certain direction, but this individual feels pulled in another direction, generally pulled more towards the light, more towards supreme consciousness universe, supreme consciousness reality. So that would be maturity. In other words, the whole idea, the whole desire to seek more information and not seek another box to get into. But it may start with them going from one box to another box into another box, and then eventually they'll just realize something's up. But just the fact that they're seeking and they continue to seek has to do with a certain type. I don't know if you would call it maturity, but it has to do with, again, not working or say fighting against being a boxhead, fighting against the system that says that you should keep your head down and you should just follow the rules. Individuals who were berating people that they call non-vaxxers and whatever, those are boxheads. Because you have the right to question anything that the system tells you. So they basically believe the lie and then they get all afraid because they're programmed to be fearful. And then they get mad at you because you say, I don't believe what the system is telling me. And these are some of the same yahoos who will say that, oh, the system, the government lies and they lie and they lie. Well, wait until they say, you might die. Oh my God. They're illogical. They're boxheads. They're immature. That's immaturity. When you question, that's more maturity. When you seek answers that are not within the safe realm of the matrix or the system, that's a form of maturity. Because you're seeking to expand yourself. Immaturity doesn't seek to expand. It seeks to just try to find the easiest way out. The easiest way is to follow and do what they tell us. They're following something that's hell-bent on destroying them. And the number of individuals who follow that and end up transitioning out disappointed because they follow the rules and then the rug got yanked out from under them anyway. That's immaturity. You can call it immaturity. You can call it a number of things. So with that, we can move on to the next question. All right, I'm going to spin that wheel. There we go.
Number 10.
Number 10.
Yeah, question number 10 is why is it hard for some people to accept new ideas or change?
Well, one of the easier questions is what I was talking about. They're boxheads. The reality is that it has to do with fear. And fear is instilled in them. And everybody struggles with it because it's all over the place. The system's constantly trying to get you to be afraid of something. May not be afraid of this thing. They said, well, we're going to find something that will frighten you with. So they'll just keep going down the list until they find something. One of the ways that they instill that is the threat of bodily harm. No one likes pain. If you don't follow us, well, it's kind of like not kind of, very much like the Spanish Inquisition. Become a Catholic, or we'll just flay the skin off you and we'll just torture you until you either decide to be a Catholic or you're dead. But they have to convince you that leaving this avatar is final, that you're going to some contrived place they call hell. lakes of fire and all this other kind of stuff. You know, even though they can't even show you any proof of it. I mean, the closest thing to hell is what I've seen every day of my life here. This is hell, but they tell you, no, this is a test. Then there's some place called heaven. And I swear, most of the people who think they're going to go to heaven, if they're going to be there, won't want anything to do with it. So again, it has to do with a system that creates boxes for you to be in. And they have all their, their gear in there, all the things that keep you in line. And then again, there's religion, there's so-called institutionalized education, and those type of things that is organized. If it's that organized, it's part of an imperialistic structure designed to break you down, to follow the directives of some sick puppy who's standing over everyone like this. Who's judging that clown? Who's rating that fool? Who's asking, where did he get the right to tell us what to do? So it's easier for them to keep you afraid if they, put you in a box. There's a philosophy. Either, you're born in a box, depending on what kind of family you're born into. So you're born in a box, you stay in that box, and you die in that box. End of story. We'll lie to you all the way. Yeah, you're going to have a beautiful, if you follow the rules and the golden rules, you're going to have a beautiful existence. If you pray hard enough, you're going to have a wonderful thing. All the people pray and things go wrong for them anyway. But they always have a phrase for a comeback for that too. God works in mysterious ways. Oh, there's a lesson. Oh, the angels called into the, It's all part of boxhead thinking. It's all involved in imperialistic ideas, ideology. Imperialism is insane if you really check it out. But again, I'm going to do something on that. And I'll let AI tell you the truth. Okay. So we're going to, I hope I'm not going through too fast, but we're going to go to the next question. Next question, turn that wheel, spin that wheel now.
Number 4.
Number 4.
Number 4, depending on the culture, when you sneeze or have a hiccup, they say someone is talking about you. Is it just a superstition? What are hiccups?
Yeah, well, using the word superstition generally is like what you believe and they don't. But as far as that's something that's contrived, I'll say that. Because when I was growing up, and I grew up in a area which was very, very Christian. So if you sneeze, somebody say bless you. And I don't know exactly where it originated from, but that was something they would always say. When I was a kid, you sneeze and go bless you. And then they said, well, that's because they believe that if you sneeze, you're sneezing your soul out of your body. So they bless you so to protect your soul as it comes back in before the devil gets you. So it's just contrived nonsense, really. Blessing somebody's soul doesn't make anything better for them, or trying to go claiming it or trying to bless their soul. But what was the? Can you read the question, because I went off into the whole bless you thing. But can you read that question one more time, though?
The question is, depending on the culture, when you sneeze or have a hiccup, they say someone is talking about you. Is
Yeah.
is that superstition, or what are hiccups?
Well, it's something that's not proven. But I remember also that they said if your ear itches, someone's talking about you. You know, but I never really heard that one when I was coming up. That if you sneeze, that means someone's talking about you. There's all kinds of sayings that people have, and again, if someone wants to believe that, that's their business. If they want to believe it, it's no skin off my nose. Believe what you want. But I will tell you my point of view, if they're curious. And sometimes my point of view scares the crap out of people because it pulls them outside of their box. So there's a box where people believe that if you sneeze, somebody's talking about you. My father used to say, his palm of his hands itching, that means there's some money coming. And I can guarantee you that didn't work in his case. So there's a lot of sayings are just kind of like throwaways, really, in my book at this point. But when someone's very young and they're impressionable, and someone older saying stuff like that, they might actually accept that as a truth. I mean, there's nothing to actually prove that it is. And so, okay, you sneeze, and then you find out someone was talking about you. Is it because was a sneeze warning you that someone was talking about you? What kind of sneeze do you have to find out exactly who's talking about you? A bunch of people, sneeze, someone's talking about me.
Celebrity would have sneezed out. Sorry.
Well, how's that going? What are you going to do about it? They're talking about you. What are they saying? So anyway, with that, it is what it is. People believe in these things, and I use the word belief loosely because belief is another problematic word. Because if you believe something, it means that you're taking somebody's word for it. That you don't have any proof that what they're saying is true. So if I tell you of my experience, it's not a belief, it's a knowing. I know this happened. I know this works this way or that way because I've been in it long enough and had it happen enough times to where it's like, that's real. Okay. So we'll move on to the next question because I don't want to end up stepping on someone else's question if I keep going with this. So we're going to spin that wheel.
Number 9.
Number 9.
Are there any common phrases that a boxhead would say?
Yes, there are. Like, that's impossible is one. Or, or I don't believe that is another one. I had some others that for some reason kind of failing me at this time. Actually, it's not really failing me because once I said that that's impossible, my mind wanted to jump into that, where someone who's a boxhead will quickly say things like that. That's impossible. You must be crazy because I don't believe. In other words, what I believe hasn't been proven to me, but I'm accepting it, and I don't accept what you have experienced. Again, this whole business of the West trying to prove that there's aliens out there is ridiculous. It's arrogant and it's insulting to other cultures who know of these types of things that go on in the world. But an imperialistic mind will shut you down and keep you stupid. There's no proof that they're. Okay, so there's huge ass vehicles, last year or whatever was flying around in New Jersey in the sky. There's got to be a drone, the size of an SUV. Well, the military. That's a belief, believing that the military is some kind of freaking god. They're just people, just like you, who have access to certain types of information that you don't. The imperialistic system, that sounds kind of political, wants to stay in control. They don't want you to realize that existence is vast. Boxheads like to put things in a category, in a box. So someone says, oh, that thing that I experienced is a skinwalker. Oh, they're all skinwalkers. I know for a fact, because of my experience, that there's a vast variety of expressions out there, more than you can imagine. If you check out some of the social media without, looking at it from your fear, that can't be real because I never seen it. There's a lot you haven't seen that is real. Have you seen anyone put together AI? You don't even know how that's constructed. So how can you sit and say what is and what isn't? Your fear keeps you a boxhead. But again, so I don't get too far from the subject, you're going to read that question again.
Are there any common phrases that a boxhead would say?
Yeah, well, okay. And I'm pretty much on track with, there's numerous phrases that boxheads we use. Oh, well, scientists say, that's one also, or my pastors say, or my imams say, or the head monks say. In other words, they don't bother to try to get the information themselves. I don't disbelieve things. I believe anything, not believe, I'll use that, because that's endemic to this world. Believe. That should be struck from language. I know that I wait to see if something is true or not, rather than say, it's not true. I saw Sasquatch. Oh, you gotta be crazy. No. So, well, that's a possibility. There's a lot of things out there that you don't know. It's a vast universe. Vast universe. And whoever said back that scientists, everything does not exist until scientists can, create it in a lab or something? That must have to be a huge ass lab for them to actually be able to figure out everything. So again, all these things literally are keeping you shut down, closed in, so that you can be controlled. And then at the very end of your pathetic little existence in this particular expression, you sit there, they lied to me. They took all these people that I cared about. Really awful things happened to people that I cared about. And I prayed. And I'm a good religious person. There's such thing as good people. And I'd rather be around a good person than a good religious person or a religious person. Because religion doesn't make you good, obviously. If you pay any attention, you'll know that religion doesn't necessarily make you good or safe. And I grew up around a lot of religious people, and they'll tell me the foibles. I had an uncle, he was a really cool guy. He was a great uncle, my grandma's brother unit. And one of the things he said about the church, he says, you want to get laid, join a church. He knew. He was from, he grew up in churches. That's one of the things that the system does. They give you that box. They destroy whatever culture you originated from, and then give you their replacement. Like it's something better than what you believed in before. like it's going to make your life better, when if you look at this world, it was going to hell in a handbasket. All these religious people praying and all this other kind of stuff. And nature is proving that religion doesn't have any sway over what it decides to do. You can pray to whatever color in the face, it doesn't make any difference. It's a box. They keep you running around in this little box. That means you can't expand your mind outside of it and actually be able to figure out how maybe you might be able to escape this stuff or change things by moving outside of the box. If you move outside the box, you can influence others to maybe who have questions to maybe move outside of the box. And so if you move outside the box, you're going to go to hell. This is hell. Show me the hell you're talking about. They don't want you to move outside the box because you're going to figure out and realize and know that they're full of it. In a balanced existence, there are no haves and have-nots. But be thankful that you're still alive. Why? If I'm suffering, why should I be so thankful? It's almost like a little game to see how long you can stay in hell before, before it takes you over and grinds you to dust. Seek to get out of the box. Push against the walls. They do give. Whoever tells you to stay away from that wall, ignore them. What do you have to lose? Push. If you have enough light, you're not going to turn into some evil individual. If you have enough light, you're going to seek light. And when you push through that box, you're going to, in other words, you're going to sense more light. And then it'll get pretty much infectious. You'll just really get into pushing out, and breaking down walls of boxes. I want to see what's on the other side. I want to see for myself. I don't want to believe, I want to know that I had this experience. Well, I don't believe, did you have my experience? Then your belief means nothing. Also, you get to the point where you get smart enough to where you can tell when you're looking at a box head or who's going, if they say once, well, you're just crazy. Well, okay, I'm not talking to you anymore. Safe journeys, box head. When you get out of the box, you actually start to expand. You can't not expand because you're allowing something in. You're allowing light in. You're allowing a certain frequency in that exists all throughout the universe. The system likes boxes because it's in a box to keep out the real, keep out the rest of the universe. Then it defines to you what the universe is. They're going to define to you everything. It's ridiculous. When I was a kid, had a sibling unit who would tell me I'm having these experiences where I'm seeing things that no one else can see. She said, well, don't think I'm crazy. I said, I don't think you're crazy. Why would I think you're crazy? That's your reality. Tell me more. I'm curious. The number of holy rollers I came across, well, I like to talk about this subject. Oh, you sinful, oh my goodness. Throw up that cross like they're trying to ward off Dracula or somebody. I like being outside of the box. The air is fresher. There's actually a nice breeze. And information's out there waiting for you. They will literally take your hand and guide you to a higher place, which is basically guiding your mind to a higher place. Because your body, your avatar is just a vehicle. Your mind is what's important. That's why they always attack the mind. All these systems are there to attack the mind. So let's move on to the next question and spin that wheel.
Number 8.
Number 8.
Okay. Could you please break down psychological projection and what programs it is connected to?
So psychological projection. Can you clarify what you mean by psychological projection?
Yeah, I saw it online, people talking about others projecting like their fears or insecurities on others. And so when people start to define it, I start to understand it a little bit, but then I feel like there's a wall or something like that. So I was wondering, like, what are some examples? What is it? And is it connected to like fear, insecurity? Yeah.
Okay, well, it sounds like what you're talking about is something that has been around a while. They call it basically someone's projecting their ideas or their beliefs on you. So, you may have a certain experience, but your experience scares them. So they project their fear of your experience onto you, or try to anyway. So that's how I understand it in a basic sense of projecting. And people do it all the time. They've been doing it for as long as the system's been around, because that's how they work on keeping each other, again, in a box. Hopefully they can frighten you into their limited idea of what something is. If I haven't experienced what you're experiencing, it frightens them. Sometimes there are individuals who are jealous of you for having certain types of experiences. And they'll just try to shut you down because it's a competition. How dare you, have more awareness than I do, or have the ability to have more awareness than I do, or have a certain type of persona that attracts interesting things to yourself. So usually when someone's projecting, they're projecting their limitations onto another individual. I've never projected anything on anyone. I just basically talk about what I talk about. But I have had individuals try to project their ideology, and you'll find that in all these systems. Religion is one of them. Projecting their ideology, their concepts of morals onto you. But again, they're generally disingenuous because you may be forthcoming with something that's very sensitive to you, but they will project and they will judge whatever you're telling them, but they're hiding their shortcomings. It's kind of like a mess. It's like opening up a can of worms, this whole concept of projecting. And I don't know in what way, now, what way are they talking about projecting, if you don't mind?
The biggest one I was hearing was like insecurities. Let's say someone's confident in a certain talent they may have and they shut them down. I don't know. When I try to explain it or understand it, that's why I was like, let me ask you, because it was just confusing.
Well, that is one of them. They basically project their insecurities on you. In other words, if you don't have a fear of something, I had individuals, like I said, try to do that to me. Never worked. Where I moved from one state or one country to another country, you always run into somebody who tries to find, well, stuff can happen. And, I mean, one of the really ridiculous ones when I moved, actually, took a vacation to Thailand. And it was right after that tsunami that hit, southern Thailand. But I was going to central Thailand, now to northern Thailand. They said, you don't want to go to Thailand. They had that tsunami. I said, well, that's in the south. That's not up there, where I'm going. Or, well, there's this going on or that going on. Literally, that is another form of someone trying to keep you in the box that they're familiar with you being in. And that's something that does happen a lot. It happens within the family units, it happens with so-called friends and whatever, where you know them at a certain point in time, you interact. Okay, you had your interactions, you might have had what you consider to be fun or whatever, but inside of you seek something more. Or you run across something that sparks your interest and you want to, branch off into that direction and explore that. So you start exploring it and then you want to go deeper into it. And then make the mistake of sharing it with them, and then all of a sudden, well, if you do that, you can end up, I don't know, in the sex trade or something like that. Get kidnapped into the sex trade if you visit Thailand. Literally heard that kind of shit, not to me, but to my children unit. So literally, those are individuals that want to keep you in the same box they're in. Also, when I talk about feeding, if you get out of that box, they can't feed on you anymore. They can influence how you move by projecting this and projecting their fears and insecurities. And they go, oh, really? A lot of times it's someone who's older or someone who's more domineering in their personality who'll try to do that to you. And it's literally them just trying to control you. That's what projecting is. It's a form of trying to control someone's movements or how someone thinks. If you're strong within what you want to do, there's no way that they're going to be able to stop you anyway. And you can build up the strength of your higher consciousness by exploring and expanding. And someone will say, well, if you're exploring, you're going to explore really awful, dangerous things. Says who? I've explored my whole existence, and I never ended up in, some mobster situation, gangs, or these awful things. They're projecting, maybe because they're afraid that that's what will happen to them. If their energy, their higher consciousness is so weak that they'll get segued into something very dense. But also, misery loves company. If you decide to move, they don't have many companies. So, I mean, does that give you some a little bit more clarity?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, we can move on to the next question, and we're spinning that wheel.
Question 12, my question.
Oh, question number 12. All right.
Are things that promote box heads?
Okay, I did cover some of it, but things that promote it are institutionalize anything. So you can say institutionalize religions, institutionalize education, so-called education, because they act like if the only education you can get is by going through an institution when there's a lot of ways to learn things and a lot more interesting things to learn outside of those institutions as well. So those are some of it. Then there's if they can't get you in those areas and you're into media, they'll code media, they'll code commercials trying to convince you that if you drive this kind of car, you're going to be special and it's going to make you, I don't know, something more than human or something. I'm not sure what that is about. So literally everything around you tries to segue you into being, in some kind of a box. Like I said, so if you're not born in a box, find a box. That's their their motto. You find a box, because you don't find a box, you won't have friends. And I had a lot of ex-friends because I expanded beyond those boxes. And every time I expanded, I started to expand down those boxes. Where are you going? Which made me want to leave even that much faster. So, in a sense, like I said, schools, religion, churches, and things like that, cliques, gangs. If it's not something that's institutionalized in that way, but if gangs weren't acceptable by the system, they wouldn't exist. Or if there are these things that exist in spite of the system must be weak because the system is all powerful. They support those things. The system's a gang. Governments are gangs. So again, everything around you that you see is something that's going to try to segue you into a box. But if you're feeling that you're having a resistance to that, that means that's a positive thing. You still have enough of that, higher consciousness energy going on inside of you to where you want to seek some kind of truth, like true truth, real truth. Not some guy who, even if you listen to what I have to say, you still have to find your own truth. It's up to you whether you want to listen to what I have to say. That's your freedom. You're right. I'm not going to hold anybody to say, you have to listen to me. You have to follow what I know that. I mean, if you want what I have to offer, you do have to follow certain regimens in order to get there, or split off somewhere else. Because if you're not, you're just wasting your time and wasting mine. I know what I do works. And I know what's inside of people. People don't even know what they are. They have this other voice and they just think it's themselves talking. No, it's not you. It's your higher consciousness is in there, but it's in this drowsy state and it's trying to function. And if you have a higher vibrational level in your higher consciousness, yeah, you're like the horse analogy. You're going to go off the trail because something higher is pulling you in a different direction from where the system wants you to go. In the end, the system wants you all to be turned into black ooze, dust, consciousness that can't move, function, or anything. You're just existing. There are people running around in this world now who are just existing, but they still have enough, I guess, energy in their higher consciousness to stagger through life, just existing. So, anyway, we can move on to the next. How are we doing with questions? Are we running out yet?
3 more, and it's 4:56.
Okay, we'll do one more thing. Okay, gonna spin the wheel. One last time.
Number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah, question number 2 is what should an individual do if they need to interact with the box set, for example, for work?
Well, if you've been interacting with them this far and not having a problem, then you already know how to interact with them. But again, I would say if you're someone who's on the journey, you just don't share things with them. If it's something political having to do with, your work situation and the whole bit where that's your livelihood, this is how you make ends meet and so on. You don't have to think like them, but you can, interact in a certain way where you're not, rubbing anyone the wrong way, because that's just being very stealthy. So I would say that if you're in a company or something like that, I can only mirror what I did. I never worked any place full time for more than like a year and 9 months. That's the longest I was able to stand being in a situation like that. And then I branched off into my own business. But until I could, I stuck it out, and I kept, my interesting thoughts to myself. I didn't have to go and show that I'm like this or I'm like that, and I think I'm special here, and this is what I'm into, and all of that. That's a certain type of immaturity, actually. But they're looking for attention, or they're trying to be special because they don't feel that they have any importance in their lives. So they try to find something that they think is unique or whatever, and then they just tout it. And sometimes they'll tout stuff and end up, having some problems. So the best way to deal with other boxheads is keep things close to the breast. Be cordial. If they like to go out drinking, you can limit it by always having some excuse. You may go once to see what it's all about. But once you find out what it's about, then you'll find elaborate ways to skirt having to deal with certain functions. And in the past, with the business that I was in, I did go to certain functions, and they were very uncomfortable. But I gave myself a certain amount of time that I was going to stay there to literally, so the client sees that I did come to their Christmas party, and I'm here, and I'm walking around, and I'm very much a fish out of water, but I'm being kind of like comfortable, whatever. And sorry, and when the alarm go off on my watch at the time, whatever, then I would leave. So it's all about just being stealthy with how you deal with people. You don't have to let people know everything about you, or unless you're looking for friends or something, someone to relate to. Most people, if you have a higher level of energy and your higher consciousness, most people here will not be able to relate to you. So you just be best keeping things close to the breast. And then you'll be able to do, there are people that I just couldn't stand at some of the companies I dealt with, but I didn't let them know. And those individuals ended up getting me more business elsewhere because they thought I liked them. But I was just being cordial. It's business. So with that, I'm going to conclude the forum. And thanks, everyone, for joining me for the 44th Ask the Chief Forum. And I'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Welcome. You're welcome.